Today I would like to invite you to listen to the Dhammapada of the Buddha Shakyamuni, the 118th verse from the Buddhist scriptures on the YouTube channel TN Thai in the USA. Should a person perform a meritorious action, he should do it again and again. He should find pleasure therein. Blissful is the accumulation of merit. This verse arises from the Buddha's profound compassion for beings who, having once performed a virtuous act, do not cultivate consistency or delight in goodness. In the true story related to this verse, there was a lay follower who, moved by compassion, gave a single gift to a poor family and returned to daily life, thinking one act was sufficient. Yet he observed how fleeting the impact of his action was, and how little it transformed his own heart. Later, he met another practitioner who, inspired by insight and mindfulness, cultivated virtuous deeds continuously, performing acts of generosity, moral conduct, and service repeatedly. Each act, performed with attention and joy, not only benefited others, but also nourished his own heart with clarity, peace, and delight. He saw how repeated practice of virtue strengthened compassion, reduced selfishness, and gradually awakened wisdom. The Buddha spoke this verse to emphasize that the cultivation of goodness is a practice that flourishes through repetition, reflection, and delight in virtue. Each meritorious act, when performed consistently, accumulates like drops of water filling a lake, producing joy, merit, and a heart aligned with Dharma. The mind that delights in virtue becomes naturally disposed toward wholesome actions, generates joy and inner clarity, and experiences freedom from subtle forms of attachment, greed, and fear. The disciple who practices repeatedly experiences an ever-expanding heart, a mind at peace, and a life aligned with truth. Blissful is the accumulation of merit because each act of goodness reinforces awareness, softens the heart, and strengthens moral and spiritual integrity. The Buddha emphasizes that single acts, however sincere, must be cultivated with persistence, joy, and mindfulness to transform both heart and world. The mind trained in repeated meritorious action experiences the natural delight of virtue, recognizes the benefits of ethical practice, and awakens to the joy of contributing to the welfare of all beings. Repetition nurtures continuity, stability, and deepening insight. The disciple who delights in meritorious deeds develops patience, wisdom, and compassion that are steady and unwavering. The Buddha teaches that the joy arising from repeated goodness is not fleeting. It strengthens both mind and heart, creating fertile ground for liberation, peace, and profound understanding. Blissful is the accumulation of merit because each virtuous action, when performed repeatedly with attention and joy, opens the mind to clarity, softens subtle attachments, and awakens awareness of the interdependence of all beings. This teaching encourages diligence, mindfulness, and delight in virtuous practice. By repeating wholesome deeds, one gradually transforms habitual tendencies, aligns actions with insight, and experiences the natural joy of ethical living. The disciple who understands this sees clearly that virtue is not a single act, but a continuous cultivation, a living practice that shapes the mind, heart, and life toward awakening. Every act performed with attention, joy, and repetition reinforces moral clarity, fosters compassion, and nurtures lasting freedom. The 118th verse calls all beings to cultivate persistent virtuous action, to delight in goodness, and to recognize the joy and transformation that arise from continuous moral cultivation. Each repeated meritorious deed strengthens awareness, purifies the heart, and opens the door to wisdom, peace, and liberation. The Buddha's teaching is gentle, profound, and immediate, reminding practitioners that bliss arises when the mind delights in virtue, and that repeated action and goodness accumulates merit that transforms life and heart, benefiting all beings, and aligning the mind with Dharma. When virtuous action is repeated, the mind begins to settle naturally into the rhythm of goodness. The Buddha teaches that the habit of performing meritorious deeds repeatedly strengthens awareness, cultivates joy, and purifies the heart from subtle forms of attachment, greed, and aversion. The disciple who practices consistently notices that each act of generosity, patience, moral conduct, or compassionate engagement not only benefits others, but also nourishes the mind with clarity, steadiness, and delight. The mind that delights in virtue becomes increasingly attentive to the arising of wholesome intentions, aware of the opportunity to act ethically in each moment, and quick to respond with mindfulness and compassion. Repetition fosters continuity and depth, allowing ethical behavior to move from a conscious effort to a natural disposition, aligning thought, word, and deed with the principles of Dharma. Each act of goodness accumulates merit, forming a foundation that supports insight, wisdom, and liberation. The disciple who experiences this recognizes that virtuous action is not a single event, but a continuous cultivation, like tending a garden where seeds sown today blossom tomorrow into flowers of peace, clarity, and joy. The Buddha emphasizes that even small acts, when performed repeatedly and with attention, have profound impact. A kind word, a gesture of support, an act of patience or generosity, repeated continuously strengthens the mind, softens the heart, and nurtures compassion that extends naturally toward all beings. Delighting in virtue is essential, for joy reinforces continuity, nurtures diligence, and transforms practice from duty into a living expression of the awakened heart. The disciple who understands this experiences the accumulation of merit as a blissful unfolding, a source of steady confidence, inner peace, and clarity that permeates all aspects of life. The Buddha reminds all beings that repeated meritorious action fosters harmony in relationships, stabilizes the mind, and cultivates insight. When the mind rejoices in virtue, attachment to self-interest diminishes, aversion softens, and fear gradually dissolves. Blissful is the accumulation of merit because each repeated act, performed with mindfulness and joy, builds a foundation for continued ethical practice and deepens understanding of impermanence, interdependence, and non-self. The disciple who cultivates repeated goodness awakens to the subtle joy of contributing to the welfare of others, experiences the natural delight of ethical conduct, and aligns the heart with the luminous reality of Dharma. Even ordinary actions, when performed with attention and delight, generate merit that influences the mind, heart, and future in profound ways. Repetition strengthens clarity, softens subtle patterns of attachment, and fosters steadiness of awareness, allowing the mind to move from effortful practice to spontaneous, effortless embodiment of virtue. The Buddha emphasizes that continuous practice of goodness accumulates merit not for personal gain alone, but as a living expression of compassion, insight, and alignment with truth. Each repeated act reinforces the natural inclination toward ethical behavior, nourishes wisdom, and opens the door to enduring peace and liberation. Blissful is the accumulation of merit because the mind trained in repeated virtuous action experiences delight in doing good, joy in alleviating suffering, and freedom from the subtle pull of negativity and attachment. The disciple who delights in repeated goodness becomes a living example of Dharma, demonstrating that ethical practice is a continuous, joyful, and transformative path, guiding the heart toward awakening and benefiting all beings. The Buddha's teaching on the repeated practice of virtue brings the heart to the essence of awakening and the natural joy of ethical living. Life is full of fleeting moments, each offering opportunities to cultivate goodness, compassion, and wisdom. The disciple who performs a meritorious action once may experience a glimpse of joy, yet without repetition, the seed of virtue remains fragile and the mind easily returns to distraction, self-interest, or habitual patterns of subtle attachment and aversion. By practicing goodness again and again, the mind stabilizes, the heart softens, and the joy of virtue deepens naturally. The Buddha emphasizes that repeated meritorious action accumulates, like drops of water forming a vast, clear lake. Each act of generosity, patience, moral conduct, or compassionate engagement contributes to a growing reservoir of merit that nurtures insight, steadiness, and inner peace. The mind that delights in virtue recognizes opportunity wherever it arises, responds with mindfulness and care, and experiences the natural pleasure of ethical practice. The disciple who understands this sees clearly that virtue is not a single act, but a continuous cultivation, a living practice that shapes thought, word, and deed, transforming life into one expression of Dharma. The repeated practice of goodness strengthens the mind against subtle influences of greed, aversion, and delusion. Each act, performed with attention, joy, and sincerity, purifies the heart, nurtures awareness, and aligns the mind with truth. The Buddha teaches that the joy arising from repeated meritorious action is steady, enduring, and deeply transformative. It supports clarity of understanding, softens the intensity of attachment, and awakens the natural disposition toward compassion and generosity. The disciple who delights in repeated virtue experiences life with a sense of ease, joy, and purpose. Ethical practice, when performed consistently, becomes a natural rhythm of the mind, a living expression of awakened awareness. The accumulation of merit through repeated action strengthens the foundation for insight, wisdom, and liberation. Blissful is the accumulation of merit because it transforms ordinary life into a continuous practice of awareness, compassion, and ethical engagement. The mind experiences the joy of contributing to the welfare of others, the peace of moral integrity, and the clarity of understanding arising from alignment with Dharma. Each virtuous act, however small, when repeated with mindfulness and delight, bears profound fruit, creating stability, harmony, and enduring merit that shapes future thought, speech, and action. Delight in repeated goodness cultivates diligence, steadiness, and a living engagement with the principles of Dharma. The disciple who practices in this way recognizes that every act of virtue is both a gift to others and a nourishment for the mind and heart. The Buddha emphasizes that accumulation of merit is blissful because each act performed with joy reinforces the natural inclination toward ethical conduct. Habitual practice of virtue trains the mind to recognize arising unwholesome tendencies, to redirect attention to wholesome actions, and to awaken natural joy in moral living. The disciple who delights in repeated meritorious action experiences life as a continuous unfolding of clarity, compassion, and freedom from subtle fear, attachment, and aversion. Every opportunity to act ethically becomes a source of joy, a field for the growth of insight, and a step on the path to awakening. Ethical practice becomes inseparable from daily living, transforming ordinary interactions, work, and relationships into expressions of Dharma. The repeated engagement in virtuous deeds gradually transforms the practitioner's character, strengthens moral integrity, and cultivates a naturally compassionate and joyful heart. The Buddha teaches that this is the living path of accumulation of merit, a path that nourishes wisdom, steadies the mind, and opens the heart to the fullness of awakening. The disciple who delights in repeated virtuous action experiences the fullness of the Dharma as a practical, lived reality. Blissful is the accumulation of merit because the mind trained in repeated ethical action experiences joy, clarity, and freedom naturally. Each repeated act of generosity, compassion, patience, or moral conduct nurtures insight, strengthens awareness, and purifies subtle tendencies towards self-interest and aversion. The accumulation of merit is not merely external. It reshapes thought patterns, cultivates inner stability, and awakens the heart to the interconnection of all beings. The disciple learns that even small acts of goodness, performed repeatedly and with attention, create a profound ripple effect, benefiting self and others alike. By delighting in virtue, the mind becomes increasingly attentive, responsive, and steady, naturally oriented toward ethical action and the cultivation of wisdom. Each act strengthens insight, nurtures compassion, and aligns the mind with the luminous truths of Dharma. Blissful is the accumulation of merit because it transforms life, shapes character, and cultivates a heart that rejoices naturally in ethical conduct. The Buddha's teaching gently reminds all beings that the accumulation of merit is a path of continuous practice, mindfulness, and delight. Life is fleeting, opportunities are precious, and the practice of virtue, when repeated and performed with joy, becomes the source of lasting happiness, clarity, and liberation. The disciple who delights in repeated goodness experiences a life rich in awareness, compassion, and wisdom. Every thought, word, and deed aligned with ethical principles contributes to the accumulation of merit, fostering freedom from subtle attachment, fear, and aversion. Repetition strengthens the foundation of practice, deepens insight, and nurtures the natural joy of moral living. Blissful is the accumulation of merit because it transforms the mind and heart, opening the door to liberation, peace, and enduring joy. By practicing continuously, delighting in virtue, and cultivating ethical awareness, the disciple aligns with Dharma, experiences the fruit of merit in life, and awakens naturally to clarity, compassion, and freedom. Each repeated virtuous act becomes a stepping stone on the path to awakening, a source of joy, and a living expression of the Buddha's teaching. The mind trained in delight and repetition experiences life as a harmonious unfolding of awareness, moral integrity, and compassionate engagement, benefiting all beings and nourishing the heart with the bliss of accumulated merit. Thank you for watching my video. Namo Amitabha. I wish to bring this merit towards all disciples and sentient beings, all of whom will attain Buddhahood. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I really appreciate your time.